in that moment, that was not grief, that was fear. That was sheer fundamental. You are learning, you are losing security. You are about to frickin' die, was what my subconscious thought. Okay, in this episode, we are in conversation, Sarah Hockett and myself, about the episode on what it took, or the two episodes, part 1 and part 2, on what it took for me to actually scale the business, and where I unpacked the backstory to what I was doing and what was going on for me. And so in this Unpack the episode, Sarah's going to ask me a few questions and help you understand through that conversation a little bit more nuance and depth.
Yeah, so as always, I'm going to jump right in. I noticed in part 1, one of the things that you talked about early on was that you were able to kind of make charity a part of of your business and integrate that in very early on, even when it kind of hurt a little bit. Can you talk about that a little more and why you did that and why that's important?
You know, I had read for so long around tithing, and that I think that was in the back of my mind. I did use 10%, which is the classic tithing, but I never had done that before, but I think that was in the back of my mind. It was not a fully conscious part of the decision, but I really did it to get over scarcity. I did it as a conscious action to get over scarcity. So here's the thing, that's part of the unconscious competency bit, because taking action in opposition to the thing that is not working in your life is a key component to success. You can't, if you're stuck in a fear, you have to do something that's contrary to it to break through. Now I know that as a technique, as a conscious thing, but I just was like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I want to just be someone who can give and not feel super attached to money. Like, money moves. Money is energy. Money is movement. It's vibration. And it's currency more than anything else. Currency is movement. It needed to be able to move through me to other people. Otherwise, I'm stopping. I'm jamming up the flow. Okay? And I knew that intuitively, and really just, I was like, that I'm just going to do this. Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think where you mentioned just now, jamming up the flow, I want to hit on another thing. You talked about how you raised your prices and you saw success with that, and then you felt so much guilt that you put the prices back down. What happened? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I wasn't selling. Okay, so the first time I tried to raise my prices, so this was before I really stepped into more. Okay, this was in the year that I went from 90K to 138. Okay, that year. So that was my third year in this business. I'd run a previous business before, but in that third year of this business, I tried to raise my rates, and not as high as I ended up raising them, but this sort of interim, and I couldn't hold it. I just couldn't hold the value because I hadn't changed my self-image. I hadn't changed my identity. I hadn't changed who I believed I was. Okay? So selling at that higher level, I was self-sabotaging in all sorts of unconscious ways because my subconscious mind was not on board. Okay?
Do you think that has anything to do with, like, you hear about, like, people who win the lottery and then, like, within a year they're bankrupt? Do you think it's the same thing?
Absolutely. It's the same exact thing. It's absolutely, there's a few things that play there. One, their self-image is not one of someone who has abundance and lots of money and prosperity and wealth and all of that, even though consciously they want that. Okay? So they do all sorts of things. They gamble it away. They give it away. They buy things that, cars that they crash. You know, all sorts of things happen, right? And it's fascinating because everyone thinks that they're going to be different, but the stats don't show that, okay? The math doesn't lie. People who win the lottery, they lose it all. It's fascinating, okay? So part of that is that you don't add your self-image is not one of someone who is wealthy. But the second part of that is you haven't actually done the work to get there. Okay? And everyone wants to win the lottery. Everyone wants a freaking shortcut. And there are legitimate shortcuts, right? Learning specific skill sets, working with people who are brilliant at helping you close the gap on time. These are the ways that you have that are great shortcuts, okay? Taking massive action is a shortcut, okay? Because most people take a little moderate amount of action, okay? So all of those are shortcuts, but not the shortcuts that most people think of as shortcuts, okay? People think, oh, I want the money to fall from the freaking sky, okay? And here's the thing, you actually don't want that, because what happens when you do the work to get to that level is that you change internally your self-image along the way so that you can actually hold it and it's sustainable. Otherwise, it's not sustainable, okay? And you don't feel worthy of it when you don't earn it. Them's the rubs.
Them's the rubs.
Yeah.
I like it. So I also want to talk about when you started working with your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
You said that there came a point where within 2 days,
Yeah.
you just had this massive breakthrough, and did you say that you made what you had been making in a year in 2 days?
Yep, more than that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that. What shift happened that in 2 days you were able to make this massive jump?
So the shift happened over a longer period of time, because you have to remember, I was doing the work. I was changing my belief system. I was changing my self-image. I was constantly working through the tactical things in my business, right? So I really want to pull back the curtain on that. Like you hear, it's not hyperbole, because it really did happen, okay? But there was a lot, it's like the tip of the iceberg, this pinnacle event, but all this other stuff went into it. But basically, I created the structure in my business so that I could sell at a high level and feel in high integrity with it. And I did it. And I did it in a short period of time. And I had the right conversations with the right people and the right clients so that I could sell at that level. And I structured my business that way.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like while you hear the 2 days, like what you don't see is everything else behind the curtain that happened before those 2 days happened. Speaking of you getting jumping on board with a mentor, you told the story about how you went and you were signing up to be his mentee,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about how you were shaking and just every fiber in your body was screaming, "Run away!" and your fight or flight was kicking in so hard. And still you fought that, and still you signed up. Do you think on a subconscious level you knew you were going to be letting go of some things that you loved in your current life to take yourself to that next level?
Are you saying on a subconscious level or
On a
conscious
subconscious level, do you think that all that screaming in you knew what you were going to be giving up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, it was really, if you have children in the car, pause, mute right now. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like everything that seemed secure and right and how I knew the organization of life to be, it was like my subconscious thought, you are giving away all the security of life, all the structure and security of life. And the truth is, and I can see that now from the position that I'm in, that wasn't security. That was a false sense of security. Security comes from being a woman who can take care of her friggin' self, okay? Not that we don't need love or companionship or other people in our life or that we're doing it alone. I have a team, right? I have people in my life that I do this with and for, right? It's we have to do, but I know now if something happened in my business, some freak accident, like natural disaster, or the economy just tanked or whatever, right? Or I made a super bad decision, right? I know how to build a business. I know the laws of success. And if you drop me down in a freaking desert with a small town somewhere close so that there were other people, I would be able to build a business. Okay. I have that level of security now. That was not secure what I was before. Okay. That was not confidence. That was not freedom. I have absolute freedom now. Okay. It's not that I'm perfect. Okay. It's not that I hit blocks, but I know fundamentally I got this. Right. And that's really what I want for everyone. That's what's behind this podcast. Yeah.
Absolutely. But stepping into that cost you that old life. I mean, I don't really want to say cost you, because it allowed you to step into the next thing, the thing that you're really meant for. But I know that you had some grief for that old life. So as you had that grief, you were still moving forward. So how did you manage to move forward through that grief?
So I wouldn't call it grief, Sarah. I just wouldn't. Like, in that moment, that was not grief. That was fear. That was sheer, fundamental. You are losing security. You are about to freaking die, was what my subconscious thought. Okay. It was just fear. It wasn't grief. And I didn't, I have never felt grief about that. That's not the experience that I've ever had around any of the things that I did have to let go of, because I did have to let go of beliefs. I had to let go of ways of being. I had to let go of ways of doing business, ways of thinking, ways of dressing, ways of holding myself, relationships, all sorts of things, ways of eating, right? It runs the gamut. Okay. But I've never had any grief about that, because it's been at some point we'll have a conversation about the law of sacrifice, because the law of sacrifice says you have to let go of something of a lower nature to let something of a higher nature in. I have zero grief about that. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's of a higher nature. Now, did I have to get my head around some things? Absolutely. Is it scary sometimes? Yes. Do you have to make a leap into the unknown? Absolutely. So, but grief is not something I would, that wasn't what was going on there.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. And I think you touched on this a little bit just in this last answer. The power of raising your self-worth. And for you, that looked like, just the various little different things that you described, new office furniture that's all matching and makes you feel good when you're in your workspace. Awesome. But little things too, like, nails and hair and things that make you feel good. And that's going to look different for everyone, obviously. How did you identify the things that were going to make you feel like I'm up here and I'm not small and I'm ready to step into this bigger me?
Really good question. Desire. Okay. It's like, you're going to hear me say that over and over and over again, because desire is causative. It's a cause set in motion. It's the thing that like when you say, I want that. Okay. Someone actually told me in an interview that should be the name of my book. I want that. Okay. Poll, please. Tell me if you think that's a good name. Okay. So like, I want that. I want that. And then there's this instant denial. Like, you can't have that. And all the voices in your head, or all the rational stories that saying, they're actually irrational stories, but they feel like rational things because you've been saying them to yourself for so many years, kicked into gear and said, no, you can't do it. You can't have that. But desire was always like, I want that. I actually do want that. But I'm telling myself I don't want it, or I'm telling myself I can't have it. And I started to pay attention to those things. So I would tell our listeners, like, pay attention to what you want. Okay. And follow that, in small ways in the beginning, but then like run with it, go with it.
That's such great advice. Honestly, for I think anybody, no matter where you are in your life, I think that's such great advice. I have one last question for you. We talked a little bit about in part 2, we talked a little bit about the importance of having that next big goal on deck, even as you're working on the current thing. Can you talk a little bit more about that in a little more depth, and what some of your next big goals are, maybe, and again, why that's important?
Yeah. So there's, at some point we'll have a whole conversation about the 3 types of goals, but I believe that everyone needs a stretch goal, and that's the shoot for the moon, land on the stars goal, right? That's the $1 million, you get 700, right? Like if what I did inaccurately, that second year, I kept that $1 million goal, and it wasn't a strong enough desire. Okay, I did well. Okay, I got there, but like it wasn't enough to propel me to another quantum leap. Okay, and mostly it was because most of the year I didn't have enough passion behind it. It didn't have enough juice. There were some other things going on, but that was a big part of it. So now I always have big ass goals. Okay, I just do, and the numbers drop in, and you know what was interesting? I'm just a little tangent, funny story. I was sitting at an event, and someone was sharing what her business goal was, and she said, 20 million by the time I'm 40. And I was like, that is a nice big ass goal, girlfriend, you know, right?
It's a great goal. Hell yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to ask her, is that 20 million annually or cumulatively? Like, everyone has different ways of talking about it. But, you know, it was clear that she was a go-getter and she was going for it, right? And I also want to be clear that the listeners' goals do not have to be that big for them to be like what gets you out of bed and juicy. For another person, I mean, for me, when I made my first like 30 to 90K jump, like making 10K a month was like a juicy, huge shoot for the moon goal. Okay. So like, do not, please do not play the comparison game. It's just unhealthy. It doesn't get you there. Use your desire. What is your desire right now that's going to step you forward, and really use that as your litmus test. Make sense?
I thought absolutely makes sense. I think all of us have a different level where we're at and what's our stretch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, is that it? Is that a
wrap?
That's
it. That's a wrap.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks for the good questions. Hey, thanks so much for joining us and being part of the Unstoppable Woman movement. We have got a ton of free resources for scaling your business at theunstoppablewoman.com/free stuff. And you can find that link in the description below. So go ahead and check those out. And we'd also love your help in getting our message out to more and more women. If you'd be willing to share this video with all the unstoppable women in your life, that would be fantastic. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Reviews, likes, and comments are greatly appreciated. We go in and read them all. So thank you for those, and thanks for listening, and be unstoppable.